Dead Boy Detectives is the latest story from the mind of Neil Gaiman to be adapted into a Netflix series, but there are some changes between the show and the comics that inspired it. The Dead Boy Detectives, Edwin Payne, and Charles Rowland first appeared in the Sandman comics in issue number 25, released in April 1991. It was not until a few years later that the boys appeared again and received the title, Dead Boy Detectives, when they reappeared in 1993. However, their most popular and largest run of their own independent stories came over 20 years later, with a 12-issue run written by Toby Litt and Mark Buckingham with art by Buckingham and Gary Erskine. Now, with streaming platforms like Netflix looking to comics and novels for inspiration, Neil Gaiman's Dead Boy Detectives have found their way back to the limelight once again. However, the Netflix series has altered the story and brought it up to date for a more mature audience with several significant changes. 9. How Crystal is saved. Crystal Palace with her eyes rolled back, and behind her in a blurry background, Charles Rowland and Charles Rowland in Dead Boy Detective Season 1 image via Netflix. One of the most significant changes comes from the way that Crystal Palace, played by Cassius Nelson in the series, is first introduced. In the comics, she is almost blown up by a bomb which was intended to end the life of her parents. Young Crystal was directly in the path of where the bomb would explode, but fortunately, Charles and Edwin were also present, and Charles acted quickly to save her. In the TV series, Crystal is not nearly so young, and she first appears as a person who has been possessed by a powerful demon. Edwin and Charles also save Crystal, expelling the demon from her body, but the demon escapes with large parts of her memory. Crystal has no recollection of her past, or her family, and so she chooses to stay with Charles and Edwin in the hopes of uncovering her past. The characters' ages. Charles, Edwin, and Crystal look into the distance in Dead Boy Detectives. As briefly mentioned above, Crystal in the comics is very young, potentially just beginning her teenage years. Likewise, both Edwin and Charles are also roughly 13 or so in terms of their appearance, despite having been dead for decades. This detail is significant as it changes the perspective and experience of the characters to make them much younger, and by extension, a much darker tale of their deaths. In the show, each of the characters is significantly older, likely in their late teens, which impacts how the story plays out. While the boys' deaths are tragic, they are more capable of standing up to adults without being looked down on, or disregarded. The children who feature in the comics are clearly not given the same respect or recognition as adults due to their apparent youth. 7. Dead Boy Detective setting. Dead Boy Detective's Nico is handed money and a magic 8-ball. Edwin Payne stands next to her. In the comics, the story largely follows the boys around parts of the UK, where St. Hilarions, the boarding school, and spots around London feature prominently. This is a reflection of the creators, who chose to write about what they know best, and place the story in a familiar environment. However, the Netflix series does alter this significantly. In the show, the story starts in the UK, but one of the first cases the boys embark on takes them to America, and a quaint little town known as Port Townsend. While there, the boys and Crystal bump into a few unsavory characters that ultimately force them to extend their visit and uncover the mysteries in the town. While the ghosts of Edwin and Charles have an enhanced capacity to travel long distances through mirrors, Edwin is also trapped in the town by a powerful being known as the Cat King.